So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Bridget Phillipson cooking the Tories over they're kind of using the victims of the grooming gangs to attack the Labour Party in currently.
Rick, who's been on our programme, who's been on various programmes in the last
So they're talking about Robert Jenrick, in case it cut out a bit.
24 hours, has said there's 50 towns and cities where this needs to be looked into. How many local inquiries do you think there should be?
Oh, we've heard a lot from Robert Jenrick these last few days, haven't we? We didn't hear very much from him when he was a Home Office minister.
As is your right,
responsible
as is your
for
right,
this area.
as is your right to say,
he should hang his head in shame
you talked about
his
the victims.
level of responsibility, his failure to deliver justice for victims, a system that failed to deliver prosecutions, where victims were left waiting years on end, even where a case was made
to that
to
question,
the criminal
now
standard.
You are in power. What are you going to do with that power is what I'm trying to understand.
Today,
how many let me just, if we could just finish off on this point, because it is relevant. You've mentioned Oldham. How many other local inquiries should there or could there be that you will fund?
So this is about framing here. So she's setting a frame into doing local inquiries, and that Jenrick has pushed for this. So I think it is fair for Bridget Phillipson to push back on not just the framing, but also the fact that who brought it up, which is Jenrick.
Take whatever steps necessary to keep children safe in whichever areas that is needed. And
have you got an idea, though? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, it has to be led by the evidence. We will look at any requests that come forward, but let's be clear, inside the home, outside the home, on our streets, wherever we see violence against women and girls, we will not hesitate to act. And that's why today, just over 6 months into government, I'm setting out in the House of Commons a landmark piece of legislation to keep children safe. What is the Conservatives' response to this? They want to block it. They want to play politics with children's lives and children's safety. They pretend to care about this stuff. They had years to do it. They had 14 years in government. They received the response of Alexis Jay's review and all of the recommendations that came from it, which we are working through as quickly as we can to deliver justice. And as the Home Secretary set out, we will make sure that there is mandatory reporting so that those who know child abuse is going on take action on it. And if they don't, and if they cover it up, then there will be consequences, and criminal consequences in the most serious of cases.
So I think what Labour should or could be doing in this situation is talking about the findings of the last inquiry, and on top of that, the changes that they're going to make, and go full court press on this and say, we're going to make these changes in order to keep kids safe. They don't want to keep kids safe because they want another inquiry into this, which will mean that there'll be no legislation passed in this specific issue, and explain to the public in that way why it's a problem. And why, if needs be, they can do an inquiry later on after the legislation is passed. That's what I think they could be doing on this.
This should have happened years ago. I mean, the Conservatives had this national inquiry. What do they do with it? Absolutely nothing. The same people that now, come in studios like this and will tell people like you that we've got to take action to protect children. They are a shameless bunch of bandwagon jumpers. They couldn't care less. This is just about a headline. It's just about opportunism. And it makes me so angry because there are children still today who are being failed because of their inaction. And we will not rest until we have done everything in our power to keep children safe.
There's one or two more.
This is the single biggest piece of child protection legislation in a generation. We are determined that we have to make sure that our children are protected. This is work that has been underway for some time. So some of the key measures are around making sure we know where children are, what you were just talking about there in terms of home education. Alongside that we have information about, all information about what's going on in a child's life, so pulling that together. And multi-agency child protection teams, so police, education, children's social care, sharing that, keeping children safe, because we've heard a lot in recent days about the lessons that we have to learn. I've had enough of learning lessons. Now is the time to take action to protect children. One of the key areas where we know there has been failure time and again is where children aren't listened to, where action isn't taken, and where those who are meant to be working to protect children don't do that. And what I would say in terms of the choice today in what's happening in Parliament is that the Conservatives can back this, or as they're proposing, can kill stone dead this key landmark legislation. They have spent the last week or so touring studios like this, telling your viewers that they care about keeping children safe. Well, they should put up or shut up, vote for this legislation and do precisely that. Mm-hmm. Or is it all about grabbing a cheap headline and political opportunism?
There's a...
Damn, that was pretty good. And again, if I was Labour, I would roll in the situation with the courts and the situations with the police. and talk about that as well, and really make the point that they are not the party of dealing with PDF files.
A lot to get to because there's other details in the bill, which I guess a second reading debate is all about. But one thing I think, given the debates or arguments of the last couple of weeks that you're alluding to, that's interesting and to be absolutely clear on, this bill aiming to protect vulnerable children has been in the works from this government for many months, not in reaction to the last couple of weeks.
No, absolutely. This was work that we developed in opposition. It's been clear for some time what needs to change. We need to listen to victims, we need to listen to children and deliver what they need. Alongside that, we've had a lot of discussion in recent days about the response to Alexis Jay's national review. Again, across government, for some time, we've been working to respond to that, and that's why the Home Secretary was able to set out the plans to bring forward legislation around mandatory reporting. So if people know abuse is going on, they have a responsibility to report it and to take action.
So yeah, the journalist kind of set her up there to say, like, you've been working on this way before Elon Musk brought this up, and this is one of the things where it's important to kind of talk about what you're actually up to in government so that people can actually understand what government's doing rather than thinking they're a bunch of time wasters who do nothing. Like, I think that's one of the important things Labour really need to understand is, again, you set the stage, or you're set up effectively. You have to talk about the things you're doing so that people actually understand what's going on, because otherwise you let people like Elon Musk and Nigel Farage and Badnoch try and steal a march on you guys when it comes to setting up a narrative, which is what Labour are doing here. They're playing catch up, but ultimately this is the best response I've seen from any Labour MP.
And as I've been clear, we were working already on her national review,
So yeah, this is off the back of the work that I think the Conservative Party did with the inquiry and things like that. But ultimately they didn't pass it. They had over a year to pass it. They chose not to for whatever reason, and so Labour have basically stolen the homework on this one and are going to pass it. And this is one of the few times where in this situation it's actually very good that they're doing this. Like, they don't need to hold another inquiry. We've had one. In terms of recommendations, already got everything we need. It's just about implementing them. So I think she does a really good job in terms of really tackling the issue here. But I think Labour needs to be more on the front foot in order to kind of deal with this, because again, they have lost the argument on this situation. You've got the majority of Labour, even Labour voters, calling for an inquiry into this. You've got Andy Burnham caving on this, saying he's in favour of a limited national inquiry. There was a Labour MP who has now called for a national grooming inquiry. So fundamentally, Labour have lost a march on this story, and they really need to do well to kind of recover from this situation, because let's be real here, the economy is not in a good state. From a narrative point of view, in terms of the changes they have made, Labour are really far down in the polls, and in some ways deserve to be so. So on this one, they really need to push on the front foot and get this story killed effectively, and really talk about the changes that they're going to make and why the Conservatives are fundamentally wrong on this issue. And here, Bridget Phillipson does a good job on this one. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.